The road was nearly empty that afternoon, the kind of road where dust hangs in the air long after a car passes. Harold Briggs, 82 years old, drove his battered 1968 Chevy pickup like he had for decades. The engine coughed with every turn, but it ran because he had built it with his own hands. His cap, worn thin by years of sun and rain, bore faded embroidery. U.S. Army Special Forces. Few ever noticed. Fewer still understood what it meant. On the seat beside him, lumber and a small box of nails slid with each bump in the road. He had bought them at the hardware store to repair his neighbor's wheelchair ramp. He wouldn't accept money for it. He never did. Service, in Harold's world, didn't stop when the uniform came off. Then, flashes of red and blue in the mirror. Sirens pierced the stillness. Harold eased the truck to the side of the road, calm, deliberate, his hands resting firmly on the wheel. Two young officers stepped out of the cruiser, sunglasses glinting, arrogance in their stride. They didn't see a man. They saw an old truck, rusted and dented, and an elderly driver they assumed would be easy to mock. The first officer circled the truck, tapping the hood with the back of his hand. Thunk, thunk. He chuckled to his partner. License, registration, or maybe just a few good excuses, old man. The second officer smirked, eyeing the worn-out pickup. No plates, no tags, looks like a pile of junk, probably unregistered, maybe even stolen. Harold didn't rise to the bait. He didn't argue. He didn't even look up. He just kept both hands on the wheel. His silence wasn't fear. It was control. It was the discipline of a man who had been interrogated in foreign jungles and never cracked. Finally, his voice came, quiet, steady, almost fragile if you didn't listen close enough. It's mine, since 1968. The officer scoffed. Sure, Grandpa. Got ID? Harold handed it over without a word. They glanced at it, then laughed. Retired. Yeah, sure. Sit tight. They pulled him out of the truck, their tone dripping with mockery. You're not hauling moonshine in this thing, are you? Again, Harold said nothing. His movements were slow, deliberate, like every action had been trained into him long ago. They patted him down. From his wallet slipped a worn photograph, faded faces of soldiers, arms over each other's shoulders. Along with it, a small notebook tumbled onto the ground. One officer picked it up, flipping through its pages filled with names. Some had stars beside them, some were crossed out. What's this? Some kind of code? The officer snickered. Harold met his eyes, unblinking. Names of men I served with. The officer tossed the notebook back carelessly. It hit the pavement, landing in the dust. Harold bent to pick it up, his movement slow but reverent, like a chaplain handling scripture. He brushed off the dirt and slipped it back into his pocket, his expression unchanged. They ordered him to sit on the curb. The concrete was hot against his knees. Cars drove by. Some slowed, passengers pulling out phones. A teenager laughed, taking a selfie with Harold blurred in the background. Grandpa's in trouble. Within minutes, it was online. Uncooperative, one officer muttered into his radio. Possible risk, added the other. Harold stayed silent. His silence was mistaken for confusion, maybe dementia. They didn't recognize it for what it was. The patience of a soldier who had once waited 72 hours in the mud of Vietnam, breathing so shallow he became part of the jungle itself. 30 minutes passed. The sun bore down. Sweat slid down his temples. He did not wipe it away. He sat straight-backed, his breathing steady. Around him, the world grew restless, officers pacing, people staring, cameras recording. "Bet this guy thinks he's Rambo," one officer joked, kicking at the Chevy's tire. "Should we check his meds?" the other laughed. The words rolled off him like rain off steel. He had endured worse: disease in the tropics, bullets tearing past his ears, friends dying beside him in silence. He had no reason to argue with children in uniform. Then, change. A gas station clerk across the street squinted, recognition dawning. He pulled out his phone. His voice trembled as he made the call. "You're not going to believe this. They've got Harold Briggs sitting on the curb like a criminal." By minute 59, the officers were ready to write tickets, expired registration, improper plates, unsafe vehicle, nearly $1,000 in fines for a man who had once walked through fire for his country. And then it happened. The hum of heavy tires on asphalt, a black SUV appeared, government plates shining, tinted windows reflecting the crowd. It didn't crawl to a stop. It arrived with authority. The back door opened. A tall man stepped out, his uniform immaculate, stars glinting on his shoulders. A 4-star general. The crowd gasped. The officer stiffened. The general's gaze swept the scene. Harold on the curb, dust clinging to his jeans, hands resting on his knees like a statue of patience. He didn't salute. He didn't smile. His voice cut through the heavy air like steel on stone.
The street fell into silence. Even the cicadas buzzing in the trees seemed to hush as the 4-star general's voice echoed across the crowd. Both young officers shifted uneasily. One swallowed hard. The other tried to straighten his posture, but his hands trembled. They had mocked an old man on the curb, without realizing they had touched living history. The general strode forward with the authority of a man who had commanded armies, but when he stopped before Harold Briggs, his tone softened. "Permission to help you up, Sergeant Major?" Harold's back straightened. His voice, gravelly but firm, carried the weight of decades. Permission granted. He rose on his own, every movement deliberate, steady. The crowd watched, some holding their breath. Cameras captured every second. The general turned on the officers, his eyes sharp as blades locked onto them. "You just humiliated a man who led soldiers through fire, a man who trained me at Fort Bragg, 1983. The survival techniques he taught saved my entire squad in a swamp when communications went dark. If I stand here today, it is because of him." A murmur rippled through the onlookers. An older veteran whispered, "Sergeant Major Briggs?" His wife gasped, covering her mouth. The general's aide, crisp in uniform, stepped forward with a letter portfolio embossed with the presidential seal. He opened it, revealing a file. "This is the unclassified portion of Sergeant Major Harold Briggs's service record," announced the general. 3 combat tours, operations so secret some will not be revealed until 2075. After 9/11, he came out of retirement at 60 to train special forces for high-altitude rescues. 18 airmen are alive today because of him. Gasps, whispers, and then silence again, the kind that feels like reverence. The younger officer stammered, We didn't know." Harold's voice cut through the heat, calm and steady. "You didn't ask." The general continued, louder now, his words meant for the gathering crowd as much as the officers. "This man's truck, the same one you mocked, carried medical supplies through 4 feet of floodwater during Hurricane Andrew. He built wheelchair ramps for veterans in this very community. He never stopped serving, not once." A woman in nurse's scrubs pushed forward, tears in her eyes. "He donated blood every month for 30 years.
never missed an appointment." Another voice from the crowd, "He built my father's ramp after his stroke, wouldn't take a dime for it." An elderly man added, "He taught my grandson scout troop survival skills, gave his weekends so the kids could learn." The officers' faces flushed crimson. They no longer saw a frail old man, they saw the giant standing before them, a man cloaked not in medals, but in humility. One officer, voice breaking, muttered, "Sir, I want to apologize." Harold's eyes, tired yet steady, met his. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the next old man before you. Assume he's nothing." The crowd erupted into applause, not the wild cheer of celebration, but the solemn sound of respect rediscovered. The general raised his hand in salute. Without hesitation, Harold returned it, his silhouette sharp against the setting sun. Cameras captured the moment, but for those present, no image could ever hold the weight of what they witnessed. That night, the story spread across the nation. Four-star general defends legendary veteran humiliated by police. Within days, the mayor declared June 4th Harold Briggs Day. Donations poured in, nearly $250,000. Harold refused a cent for himself. Every dollar went into building wheelchair ramps for disabled veterans across the country. And yet, Harold remained who he always was. He kept driving that rattling truck. He kept fixing what was broken. And when people now stepped aside as he passed, saluting in quiet reverence, he simply nodded. Because Harold Briggs had never wanted fame. He wanted one thing only, that the world never forget, respect comes first, not last.